talking about stress and time management, and this lesson is we're calling Rich in Disciplines. You may be a little disappointed to find out that I'm going to be very practical and principled. I don't have any magic for you today, but I want to go back and remind you of some very important things. There's one of the armed services says, be all you can be. I don't know which one that is, but Army, be all you can be. God doesn't expect us to be anything but what He's equipped us to be. Sometimes I think we compare ourselves to all kinds of other people and then we feel bad because we're not them. But I want to start by saying you don't manage stress or you don't manage time by becoming somebody else. Just you're who you are. Now there's a way that we can make you efficient. You might be an old Singer sewing machine where you have to use a little pedal, or you might be a modern day sewing machine that does all the bells and whistles. Well, we just need you to be the best Singer machine that you are, whichever that is. So he does expect us to be efficient. And I've proven this personally in my own life. For example, when I was in high school, I just started putting my mind to school because I wasn't involved in sports, and I knew I was going to go to college, and so I just showed up to every class. I did all my homework, and I started getting all A's, and then through college I got all A's, and so I used to have people say, "Boy, you're smart," but I knew in talking to them, they could rattle off things that I couldn't. That they knew all the stats, and they had a better memory than I did. But the reason I did well in school is because I did my homework, and I showed up to class every time. It was my disciplines that actually served me well. I know a lot of people that had more brain power than I did that didn't do as well because they didn't worry about turning in their homework or something like that. And most teachers, if you turn in all your homework and you go to all your classes, you're halfway there. And so I've just done that, I guess, with God. I don't need to be brother so-and-so, but I need to be disciplined with who I am. And then I can rest. I'm okay with who I am. So the greatest gift you can give yourself is discipline, self-discipline. And the Bible recommends a lot of disciplines, but again, a lot of times we look at the do's and don'ts of the Bible as, I better measure up. Instead of, that's your coach saying, if you'll do this, that's going to maximize your life. If you'll do this, you're going to produce more. So when I cheat by not doing what God says to do or what discipline or principles say to do, then I really cheat myself. So I'm going to start at that baseline with stress management and time management. Everyone in this room can manage your stress and your time. You're just going to be different people doing different things, and it won't look exactly the same. But you can be as successful as anyone else in this room. Most of us, it's about your discipline, and some of you are built more to be self-disciplined than others, so some of you will have to work harder at self-discipline than others, but it's still the same thing. So discipline is really going to make you rich, and I want to show you that very practically in just a minute, but one way that discipline makes you rich is it makes you rich in spirit, in that you're not always disjointed, discombobulated. People who don't discipline themselves, for example, something as simple as, I always put my keys in my pocket. Always. If they're not in my pocket, they're in a drawer in my office. Almost never do I put them down anywhere else. Because I know if I just put my keys down anywhere, I'm spending 15 minutes a day looking for keys. So that little discipline of always putting my keys in my pocket or always having, I only need to look, if they're not on me, they're in my drawer. On rare occasions, if they're not one of those two places, I do have to look for my keys every once in a while, but maybe twice a year or something like that. So those of you who are saying, oh, come on, don't be so rigid, always putting your keys in your pocket. Live a little bit, leave them here and enjoy. Well, you can do that, but you're going to be frantic sometimes because it's not just keys. You can't find your socks. You can't find one of your shoes. You don't remember where you left your important papers. And, all of those things. You can be rich in spirit when you're self-disciplined because you know where things are at. Things are in order. Things are in their place. You can also be richer in resources. I've gone into some people's houses, and they have, I don't know where they get the money to buy all the stuff they have, but it's in no order. So if they need a new something or other, they can't find theirs, so they just go buy another one. Whereas if you're a little more disciplined, you go get yours, and you use that again, and you just save $40 plus the trip to the store, plus a lot of time. You had to go shopping. All of that adds up. Another way that you're rich is in time. I kind of just referred to that, but people have asked me sometimes, how do you do everything you do? Well, my personality lends itself well to this, I have to admit, but I'm a very systematic person. I'm up at the same time. I go to bed at the same time. My prayer time's the same time. On rare occasion, things will mess it up and I'll change things. But I am self-employed. Nobody checks up with me on how many hours I spend a day. I could cheat all day long. As long as I get my sermons done, you guys don't know when I get them done, or if I just download them from the net. So I have to be disciplined myself, and it does show eventually. But if I'm not self-disciplined, then I get up and it's like, well, it's Monday. I've got 5-6 days before I have to do anything. I got time. I think I'll just maybe sleep in a little bit today. That kind of thing, it's not bad every once in a while to do that, but if every day I wake up and I'm not really sure if I'm going to get going at the same time, well, then I don't get going at the same time, and I lose that time. So I can't overstate how often I've been able to get a lot done just because I hold myself accountable to a schedule. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's talk about efficiency real quick. Efficiency is really being more fruitful. And the parable of the talents, everyone was given their talents. The owner didn't care that you didn't have as many talents as somebody else, but he did care if you didn't take your talents and get fruitful with them. So I want to show you how important efficiency is in your life, right? Policemen on average make $53,000 a year. They're important, right? I mean, it's good to have policemen. They're very important to our community. They are essential workers. Plumbers make a little bit more than policemen. They make about $59,000. Of course, if your plumbing's backed up, they are very important too. They deserve their money. Teachers make $61,700. Now I don't know where they got that number. If that's including professors, I don't think that's all teachers, but they deserve that too, right? They make pretty good money, and I'm proving something here. In the real world of capitalism, how much money somebody makes usually does indicate how valuable they are until you get into the celebrity business, and then it's just all crazy. Small business owner makes about $71,000 a year, and they deserve it because they work so hard. But an efficiency expert makes about the same amount of money as a small business owner. Anybody have any idea why you would pay an efficiency expert so much money? Because he saves you that much money. That's proof. A business is not going to pay someone $70,000 if they're not getting at least $71,000, and usually it's a lot more than that. And if you get a big business, they have multiple efficiency people on staff all the time, because if they can keep their company running efficiently, they're going to save bukus of money. It's no different in your life. You might just say, oh, it's just my life, and I'm not going to be so rigid like we are at work. Well, once you get disciplined and hold yourself to a discipline, it's actually not as much work as being undisciplined is. Can I get an amen from a few people that picked that up over the years? So why do they pay him so much? It's because you get it back. It's worth it to hold yourself accountable. If for example, somebody is making some kind of a product on an assembly line, and they have a guy working over here, and then he has to run over here and do this, and then he has to run over and do something like this. The efficiency worker will come and say, why don't we rearrange these workstations so they can just pivot instead of walking halfway across and back, save them a day, maybe 200-300 steps, save, 20 minutes a day? Well, 20 minutes a day starts adding up, and all that efficiency makes a lot of difference. It's no different with you. How many times do you go to the car in the morning? Well, if you forgot this, and then you forgot that, and then you forgot this, and you forgot that, before you know it, you don't realize it, but you just wasted 15 minutes of your time. So if you'll think, not selfishly, but fruitfully about this, there was a guy by the name of Frederick Taylor back in the 1850s. He was the first guy he's given credit for being the first efficiency expert. And he used slow motion photography and stopwatches to start figuring out efficiency. He broke down the production process into different movements. And then he helped manufacturers revolutionize the manufacturing business. And in 1910, when Louis Brandeis, the future Supreme Court Justice, said something about Frederick Winslow, he said, this man's going to save the railroad companies $300 million a year, way back in 1850s, just by getting things in order. So I want to start there and apply that scripturally. Peter said, prepare your mind for action, exercise self-control. Put all your hope in the gracious salvation that will come to you when Christ Jesus is revealed to the world. So you must live as God's obedient children. Don't slip back into your old ways of living to satisfy your own desires. You didn't know any better then, but now you must be holy in everything you do, just as God who chose you is holy. For the Scripture says you must be holy because I'm holy. And remember that the Heavenly Father to whom you pray has no favorites. He will judge you or reward you according to what you do. So you must live in reverent fear of Him during your time here as temporary residents. And then 17 says, you call out to God for help and He helps. He's a good Father that way. But don't forget, He's also a responsible Father, and He won't let you get by with sloppy living. So this class is spiritual in the sense is, if everyone in this room got a little bit more efficient, we would be able to put a little bit of that into the kingdom, and the kingdom would prosper because of that. If your prayer group wasn't planned a half hour before prayer group because you just didn't have the discipline to get it done earlier, it would be a better prayer group. God could speak to you. You wouldn't be frantically trying to get your prayer group ready. And it's not quite as hard as you might think to get that organized. So I want to just give you a little appetizer of some of the things we're going to talk about in this class. And I want to give you an example of how much money just a little thing can save, right? So get out your calculators. Anybody? I need 3 or 4 people with your phones out and calculators. I want to do a little math here, all right? Let's suppose you suddenly got a chance to start working from home. Becky just told me she's working from home twice a day. All right? The average commute in Connecticut, any guesses? 30 minutes, right? It's not bad. 30 minutes. So number 1 would be 30 minutes. Now, if I go to work and come back, how many trips is that a day? And math not too hard, so how many minutes is it going to take me a day? 60 minutes, 1 hour, all right. Now, if I work 5 days a week, what are we up to a week for travel? So if I get to commute from home, I should save 5 hours a week. Now, there are 261 working days in a year. If I save 2 hours, what's that number? 261 times 2 would be 522. I put 261 instead of 522. That means if I divide that by 16, if I divide the number of total time saved in the year, you're awake 16 hours, all right. So if you're awake 16 hours and sleep for 8 hours every day, then if you save 261 hours per year, I didn't explain that well, but if you're saving 261 hours, that's 261 waking hours. So if I divide 16 into that 522 instead of 261, that means if I don't have to drive to work, if I'm 30 minutes away, I'm actually saving myself 16.3 whole working days a year. And what could you do with 16 extra days in the year? The problem is sometimes we save the commute, and where did it go? You didn't take it and put it anywhere. So that 16 hours a day, 16 days a year, it just got absorbed somewhere, and you could have been 16 days more productive. Hopefully I'll explain this one better. Let's look at the expense involved. If you drive 30 miles, or 20 miles, to work, 30 minutes to go 20 miles, then every day you're going to save 40 miles driving time. Now, in our economy right now, the IRS lets you take 56 cents an hour for reimbursement for travel. That means every day you're saving $22.40 just by working at home. If you multiply that by every working day, you save $5,846.40. So those of you who during COVID stopped driving to work, you are 16 days richer this year. You are $5,846 richer this year. Where is that money and where's that time? But just a little tweak like that. Not everybody can work from home, but that's what we're going to be talking about during all of this. My wife is going to come this time, lead you through an exercise to kind of help you start being more efficient and prioritizing.
Okay, everybody has a group to be in, correct? If you don't, raise your hand. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you a question. Then I'm going to give you a few minutes to have discussion within your group and discuss what things you want to write down. You've heard the question before, if you were marooned on a desert island and you could choose only 5 items to have with you, what would you want those items to be? Now, you need to think very carefully about this. We want the top most important 5 things that you will need to survive on this desert island. Let me give you a hint. Like you might want to have a knife be one of them, because what could you do with a knife? Kill fish, cut down trees maybe, start a fire, who knows? Okay, so I'm going to give you like 5 minutes. Think about the 5 most important things you would want to have with you. Now be practical, because you can't take a car, you can't take an airplane, okay? So let's start now. Discuss with your group. 5 things only you want to have written down. Okay, pens down. Okay, who would share with us your top 2? Back there in the sound booth. Straw? Okay, and what else? A Bible. Okay, who else? Your top 2. There's no right answers. This is just, go ahead.
A flint and a hatchet.
Okay, all right. Sharon. Okay. Susan. A water filter? Okay, you're going to carry that in your pocket, right, whenever you land on the, yeah, okay. Okay.
Our first suggestion was a working boat.
Okay. Firewood?
Something to start a fire.
Something to start firewood. All right.
Yeah, we came up with the Bible.
Someone was going to say that we're in a church.
We also, in here, you think of a rope or a shovel.
Okay. All right.
We didn't say Bible because thy word have we hid in our heart.
There you go. There you go. Amber? Okay. Okay, we're thinking all on the same. Did I get everybody? This group back here? Did I miss anybody? Okay. So what would you say that we're doing by making a list like this? Trying to organize, prioritize, that's the word I was looking for. Prioritizing, for me, takes the stress, some of the stress, out of life. Because if you put your most important things first, like you did right here, this is what we should do with our lives, is like every week, what is the priorities that I have to get done this week, and then see where I'm at in my week, and I might be able to get more into my week than I thought it would be. But prioritizing, it does help you to be, what's the word we were just talking about? There you go, efficient. You were listening. So prioritizing your life daily, monthly, weekly, knowing I'm taking care of the most important things. And what we have to do in order to prioritize is what you just did right now and evaluate. Where am I spending my time? Where am I wasting my time? What should I cut out? What should I do less of? What should I do more of? Maybe I'm spending too much time on social media. Maybe I'm spending a lot of time just thinking about what I should do. Maybe I'm spending a lot of time finding the things I need to do what I need to do. So evaluating, that's important. And then one area that we kind of overlook is taking time for ourselves. Sometimes we're going throughout our whole day and we never take a moment to just like regroup. Spend 5 minutes just letting my brain rest, and then you get your second wind. And you actually get more done whenever you give yourself time just to have a break. Your body needs it, your mind needs it, your spirit needs it. And so if you're just making yourself go, you're wearing yourself out unnecessarily. So just try it. I'm not talking about something like a whole 30 minutes, just like 5 minutes. I'm just going to sit here and pray or read something, do something I haven't been doing all day kind of thing. Some things that we do at Acts 2 to prioritize and to be efficient is we start on time. Classes, services, prayer groups. And that is very important because we save time that way and we help everybody. We let you know we value your time. So if we say we're going to start at 7, but it's 7:15 before we started, we've wasted 15 minutes of your time. So we want to be aware of that. And you probably noticed that we keep our meetings to a minimum. We don't have coordinating meetings for our services. We rely on scheduling. We rely on people being led by the Holy Ghost. We have one leadership meeting a month and then weekly reports. So that cuts down on the number of meetings you have to attend or things that you have to turn in for your prayer group. Children's ministry and youth, you've got the freedom to choose what you're going to do as far as like decorating your classroom, even choosing your curriculum, things like that. So that's less time that has to be spent on planning. We have one calendar, one ministry schedule, and that helps everybody be on the same page. You go to one area, acts2.org, you can find the calendar, you can find the ministry schedule, and then it cuts down on everybody having to say, what time am I supposed to? When am I going to be doing my part? So that just cuts down on a lot of time, and we try to be efficient in that way.
The bedrock of discipline to me is schedule. Now, admittedly, again, it's a bigger challenge for some of you than others just because of the way you're wired. But as I mentioned, especially if you're self-employed, but let me just ask people like Lisa Legler or John Dyer, any of you that sometimes, Junior, there's several of you in here that manage other people. If you're running like Brother Dyer runs an electrical business and we have a scheduled banker's hours, obviously, but it's not what you think. The banker has to be there earlier than they open their lobby. But if you hire somebody, let me just ask you to, I'm risking myself here too. If you hire a teller or if you hire an assistant to help you be an electrician, and they're excellent, they have good resumes, but they're always 20 minutes late. And you have to cut your staff. You've got a really good employee that's always 20 minutes late. You've got an average employee that's always on time. Who survives? The one who's always on time? The average one that's always on time. That's because time is money. And, you know, if they're 15 minutes late, that's not just, they're thinking like, oh, I'm only 15 minutes late, and I'm 15 minutes late to everything, no big deal. But if you're 15 minutes late to work, now your boss is now 15 minutes late, so they've lost 15 minutes of their time waiting for you, and then 15 minutes of your time. How easy is it to make up both of you 15 minutes in the day? It's really hard to do. And again, I use business to say, not that you need to run your life like a business, but your life is valuable, and you need to treat it as valuable. So if you hold yourself to a schedule, those of you who use the snooze button, the Holy Ghost is convicting you right now. Because when you said, I'm getting up at this time, and then it goes off and you say, oh no, you're giving in to your flesh right then. And you're not respecting your own schedule. You're not even being your own boss. And if you keep hitting that snooze button, then your day is starting off behind schedule. You have just devalued your day. This isn't conviction for me, not for your neighbor. It's if you want to have an efficient life, decide when you're going to get up. Now, if you really want to get up at 6:40 instead of 6:30, just set your alarm for 6:40. But don't let your flesh, the very first thing you do in the day is say, oh, I don't worry about that. You're teaching your flesh right there just to be lazy, to put it off, to procrastinate, all that kind of stuff. If you're always late, you're really not holding yourself accountable. You're not managing your own flesh. Now, sometimes that's because of laziness. Sometimes it may be because of just a bad habit. But I think a lot of times, some of us do that out of passive resistance. It's just our little way of, I know I'm supposed to get up, but I'm just not going to get up. But again, you're your own boss, so you just, poked your own eye. So let's just look practically at two lives, all right? And I tried not to be too ridiculous about this so I could be as fair as possible. But this is one person's day. This is another person's day. I'll try to go through it real quick. One person gets up at 6 o'clock, and for the first hour and a half, they have their breakfast, they have 30 minutes of prayer, and they take a shower, right? Then by 7:30, they're off to work, and it takes them about a half hour to get to work because they live in Connecticut, all right? So then they get to work, and from 8 to 10, the first part of the day, they're able to catch up on a few things, make a few plans, and then go to a meeting. They take that break my wife was just talking about from 10 to 10:15, and they're able to calm down, chill out, and, then they won't yell at the people they're working with the next period of time. And so they go from 10:15 to 12, and they can have a good, productive time. They got their good rest. They've got a little bit of break. They're all planned. And then they can take their half-hour lunch. After lunch, they're revived and energized so they can go back and work some more. Then they get another break. Look at all this free time. Look at all this, because they're scheduled here, all right? Now, if you're at home, my wife and I both work from home, and we do this. We don't have like a 10-15 break, but if it's mid-morning, I'll say, I'm going to put everything aside. I'm just going to have a cup of coffee. I'm just going to relax. And then it makes me more productive. My perfectionism wants to push and say, no, I'm just going to get everything done. But I've learned over the years that that's not productive. So I make myself take a break. So if I do it this way, this person does it this way, they can leave work on time. Everyone say on time, 5 o'clock. Well, then they can drive home, a half-hour driving, 30 minutes to stop by the grocery store, pick up anything they need. By the time they get home, they can spend an hour eating their dinner. And then there's prayer and care group, of course. You got a little bit of travel time, you got an hour and a half of prayer and care group, and then you come home. If you Zoom, it's a lot faster, but 7 to 9:15. Then from 9:15 to 10:30, you got an hour and 15 minutes just to relax. Well, not always relax. You're fixing, you're working or whatever, but there's a little time there. You can go to bed at 10:30 and you can get 7.5 hours sleep. Now, just vote here. How many of you typically get a full 8 hours sleep a night? Not very many at all. How many of you are in the 7.5 hour range? Okay, maybe 25%. How many of about 7 hours? Another 25%. How many more like 6.5 or 6? Ooh. So I understand why you're falling asleep during church sometimes. No, I'm teasing. More and less sleep is not always wiser. It's not always more functional. So some people can actually function on 6 hours fine. But if you're always tired, you're not a bad person, but maybe you should sleep more, and maybe you won't fall asleep doing your projects, and you'll probably get the projects done faster if you're not asleep. It tends to work that way. So we're going to tweak it just a little bit, just so you can see how this stacks up on us. If you're more of a snooze button hitter, okay, your alarm goes off at 6, but you hit the snooze button twice, right, because you were up late the night before, you don't get going until 6:30. So now, from 6:30 to 6:45, you really don't have time to pray, which is very, very inefficient, because now God's not helping you set your course for the day. And then you have your breakfast and you have your shower. You can't find your keys, so you at 7:45 get in a rushed drive to work. I don't know, you might even get a speeding ticket if we went too far. You pray in the car, and you get to work at 8:30 instead of at 8. And that may not seem like a big deal to you, but 30 minutes is a good part of the workday. Since you're running late, you can't really plan for your meeting, so you go from 10 to 10:15, and 8:30 to 10. You're hurried. You're not ready for your meeting because you couldn't plan. You're a little rushed. Then you can take a little bit of a break, but maybe catch up on your planning during your break, so you really don't get to let off any steam. And then at 10:15, you're kind of catching up on work. 10:15, since you forgot your lunch, you go fast food. There's a long line. It takes you just 15 minutes longer, not much, but you're not back to work till 1 o'clock. So from 1 to 3, you do have good work time, but you don't get to take another break because you got to make up for the time that you lost at lunch. And then from 3 to 5:30, you work a little bit late, because you have to make up for getting to work late. And then you stop by the grocery store on the way home, and you have dinner from 6:30 to 7:30, which makes you late to prayer and care. And but since you're late to prayer and care, you don't want to just stay there for a few minutes, so you stay late at prayer and care after it's done so you can do your visiting. And that puts you home at 9:45, which is only a half hour later, but you got 9:45 to 11 to relax, which puts you a half hour behind, and you only get 7 hours sleep instead of 7.5 hours sleep. That's in one day. That'll creep on you, and that'll snowball on you, and that's probably being very kind on what that will do. So all this class is going to do is kind of get you thinking. We're not going to give you miracles, like I said. We're not going to give you do these 17 things and you'll be a different person. We're going to say, just think about your own life. If you are hitting the snooze button and you stop hitting the snooze button, it's going to make a big difference in your life. If you're always frantic and you never take a break, just taking a little break is going to make a lot of difference in your stress level at work. So time and stress management is not as complicated or big a deal as sometimes we make it. You might look at someone, like I've had people look at me and say, like I said, I don't know how you get it all done. Well, I get up and I have a prayer time, and it's really pretty simple. And if you just very simply hold yourself to a schedule, you'd be surprised how much more productive you would become. This this is good for your body. It's good for your emotions. And the older you get, the more your body will want you to do this for it. A good, consistent sleep, things like that. It's good for your family because your family knows when it's dinner time. How many of you have noticed, this is how it was with my family. Church was 10 o'clock. We really needed to get in the car by 9:30 to get to church by 10. Ask the Hearts. I don't think we were ever on time. There was 5 kids. And the problem was, if you were at the car at 9:30, you were waiting on 2 other people, wasting your time. So why go to the car at 9:30? Because not everybody's going to be there at 9:30. And before you know it, the whole family and whole cultures can do this. Whole churches can do this. Nobody bothers getting there at a time because they know it's not going to start on time, and then nobody knows how to plan. Well, that all starts with you. You take charge of your life, and you make sure dinner's at 5, and teach your kids to be there at 5. And if they're not there at 5, their dinner's going to be cold. It sets you up for success, like if you have family devotions, or like my wife and I, we get up at 6:30 and we leave the first 2 hours or so for our breakfast and for prayer. Well, I study for sermons usually later. That's part of my workday. But because I have made that a holy time, we never. Every once in a while, I might take a phone call during that time if it's somebody whose number I recognize and I think I might be able to handle whatever they need real quick. But that 2 hours is sacred time because I'm talking with God, I'm getting my head straight, I'm getting my mind in order, I'm reading the Bible, and I don't know how many times a year, probably a dozen or more times, while I'm praying, thoughts will start flowing and I'll get a whole sermon in 5 minutes. Whereas if I'm too rushed to pray, then I'm going to sit down and say, okay, what's my sermon going to be? And it won't even be anointed by God. It'll just be trying to grab thoughts out of thin air, the writer's block. And it'll take me 2 hours to come up with the sermon. But because I disciplined myself to spend time with God, He gave me my sermon. It saved me 2 hours or 3 hours. That's how you can get a lot done. I tell all of you as leaders, to be on time to your classes, to your prayer groups. Start your prayer groups on time. All the things my wife just mentioned to you. If you can't make it, let us know. All of those things are not to be rigid. All of those things are to make everything efficient. And you can do the same thing in your own personal life. So let me just give you one quick example before we close here. And I'm saying this because people don't always get this. Here at II Ministries, I don't know other places. I'm not comparing this to other places. I'm just saying how we think. We do as Lisa and John just said they do. There are a lot of people at II Ministries that have talents, but there's not a lot of people we can count on to be faithful or on time. And a lot of times people that are not used or don't have a role to play at II Ministries, it's not because they're not talented, it's because we're just not sure if they're going to show up or if we can count on them or if they're going to let us know if they're not going to do that. So realize that if you'll just be one of these people that can be counted on, you'll have more opportunities to minister because you're somebody right there, Johnny on the spot, that can be counted on. So that's how practical it's going to be.